people are happy with their economic circumstance. We've been saying this for a long time, that the majority of Americans say that they're doing really well.
I think there's some that are struggling in certain sectors.
Yeah, there are.
But this new survey finds a majority of Americans are currently quite happy with their finances. The Axios Vibes survey reports 63% of Americans rate their current financial situation as good. That includes 19% who say it's very good. In addition, Americans' outlook for their financial futures also rosy. 66% think 2024 will be better than 2023.
Hello. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this Saturday evening. Yes, I'm not typically here on Saturday evenings, but it is good to see all of you here. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack. If you guys would like to, you guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so you guys are aware and you guys get those email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write articles. So you have that there. If you guys already like me, if you really, really like me, then you guys can go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for the Jaybefaunt deliciousness, because that's what you came here for, right? Absolutely. And I'm glad to have you. As per usual, whenever I do have a guest, I typically say my salutations for everybody to the end. But while I have you here, I would like to introduce my guest for today. He is an instructor, an instructor, a Marxist, a wrestler, someone who knows a lot about the healthcare system, and just an all-around really cool, chill guy that looks better in backwards hats than I do. We have Eddie Liger Smith of Midwestern Marks joining me today.
What's up? Thanks for having me, JB. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to see you, man. And you guys have been doing big things at Midwestern Marks. You guys just got an achievement of having more subs, and you guys are making your mark on the scene and really just spreading the goal of Marxism, not just in a academic way, but on a really concrete, fundamental way. And I just want to thank you for you and all the other members of Midwestern Marks, Noah and Carlos, and forgive me for I forget the names of the other members, but you guys are doing the damn thing over there.
Thank you. We're trying. We're doing what we can, just like everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I wanted to touch base with you on was that as somebody that is a Marxist like yourself, right? There was some remarks that were commented on by David Pakman. Now, as anybody knows, David Pakman is a well-known person. Part of me wants to say independent media, but I don't know if I can say independent. I say independent in air quotes. But he says some things that are regarding the economy to, I guess somebody would say, a right-winger, that really just was wrong in many ways. And I feel this is more of a teachable moment for somebody like David Pakman to use him as an example. And so have you ever watched any of his shows or any of his programs before?
Yeah, I actually used to watch Pakman quite a bit when I was like doing the Bernie campaign in 2020. Pakman had a good video talking about like how socialists could pay for all the stuff that they want. And he basically went through the government and showed how much like wasteful spending there is in the government that could be diverted towards social programs. And he used to do some pretty decent content like that. And then it was like, after 2020, at least, pretty much he just became a Biden bro, and all of his content focuses on just, the most vulgar Trump badism just pandering to liberals. You know, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Biden good, Biden good, Biden good. And another thing I've noticed with Pakman, I've said this in videos on our channel and we've reacted to him, is he has this condescending tone that he takes with people, especially when he disagrees with them, where he just really sounds like smug, like he's talking down to him. And I think in the clip that we're going to react to today, that really comes out.
Yeah. So just as you said, there is a clip that came out. I want to give a shout out to Greg versus capitalism.
He's awesome.
Yeah, and he actually shares this. Actually, let me show you guys what he says first before I share with you guys the video. He says, you don't hate these people enough. You think you do, but you don't. So we'll listen to this fully, and then we're going to break it down step by step. So here's what David says.
David, why are you acting like the economy is so booming and good?
Because I look at the data. This is not a show about my opinion. My opinion is irrelevant. I'm looking at the data, and that's why I say the economy is good.
The economy is absolute trash.
Oh.
There are no jobs.
Oh, we actually have record low unemployment.
Everything is so freaking expensive.
Inflation was 0 in October, 0.1 in November, and year-over-year inflation is down to 3.1%.
Interest rates are through the roof.
Interest rates are down 2 points and coming down further.
Kids can't even buy a house.
Well, okay. Kids can't even buy a house. I don't know what age you're thinking of. That part may be true.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing YouTube, man?
I'd probably be working in finance, to be honest. I was all set to go into finance, and then they pulled me into podcasting.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
No, I would almost certainly be working in finance, yeah.
I mean, you have to sit there and talk crap about Trump every single day to put food on your table, man.
I don't have to. I choose to, sir, and that's a big difference.
If you didn't have that, you'd be totally screwed, man.
Right.
But I'm telling you this right here. There is no jobs. Nobody is spending money.
Actually, GDP has been up dramatically.
The economy is in the hole. I'm not talking about Trump or Biden. I'm not saying right or left, red or blue. I'm telling you the facts. The economy is in the dumps.
I would love it if he was able to present a single statistic that suggests that. We don't have a perfect economy. And again, we started at the top of the show by pointing out, just because they're lying about oil production being down when it's actually up, doesn't mean we like using oil as a source of energy. They are lying about oil production being down, and I wish it were, and that we were getting off of oil and going over to green energy. In the same way, just because the economy is doing really well by all historical metrics, doesn't mean that we say, hey, I'm satisfied, we don't need to do any better. There are people without access to healthcare. 40% of the country can't meet an unexpected $1,000 expense without putting it on a credit card or borrowing from friends and family or otherwise going into debt. Wages have not kept up with inflation over the longer period of time. There's a whole list of problems, but we are doing way better than we were. We are not the be-all end-all of a Northern European-style democracy and economy, but we have made improvements, and we have to recognize that if you are measuring how well the economy is doing differently depending on who's president, then you're being biased.
Okay,
so funny. Sorry.
First of all, I would like to get your initial thoughts about just the tone that David Pakman used in this, and then we can go down line by line. But I would just like to get your initial thoughts of the tone that he used regarding this person, because apparently this person is someone that's probably on the right, correct? But in my opinion, what this guy on the right was saying was correct. And so please give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we can break down the data points all that we want, and we can talk about how the Biden economy isn't doing well and how capitalism is failing the majority of the country. But like you said, there's so much to break down just in the way, in the tone that David Pakman takes with that viewer. I mean, you clearly have a working class viewer who, maybe can't explain with data and statistics that the economy isn't doing well, but they know the economy is not doing well because they feel it every day. They feel they're being exploited. They feel that they're being trapped in debt. They feel that, the price of goods is out of control, and that they can't afford their rent, that they can't afford their health care. And that's the experience that they have and that their whole family has. So David Pakman's response to that is to treat this guy like he's an idiot, to treat him like his feelings are illegitimate, and like he's making them up, and complaining. and then cherry picks a bunch of data points to tell, like literally talking about GDP, which measures nothing except for corporate profits. I mean, the money that we pay in debt to the big banks counts as GDP. So, you know, that's not a sign of a productive economy that's working for the working class. I mean, this is so-called leftists, like David Pakman calls himself a leftist. We've known this for years, that GDP isn't a good measure of how the working class is doing. Yet here he is citing GDP in a super condescending fashion towards a working class person to tell them that their gripes about the economy are illegitimate. And you know, I'm David Pakman's a liberal, so I'm okay with liberals showing their asses and showing the American working class how condescending they are. But if you're a communist, if you're a Marxist, you cannot act like David Pakman did in this video, right? You cannot act condescending towards people. You need to be open to the very real economic struggles that they're facing if you want to win those people towards a progressive movement like the struggle for socialism.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that I think people like him get wrong, is that there's this tone that he continuously has that is talking down to working people. And it is counterproductive to actually get people to your side if you're trying to win them over. And the point is people need to be talked with, not at. And I feel like people like David Pakman talks at people, especially those of us who are working and working class, those of us who are working poor, right? And so it's as if, because this guy dare complained about the economy, and my question to David Pakman would be, if we switched out the administrations, and if it were a Trump administration instead of a Biden administration, would he be saying the exact same thing? Would he be backing it up with the exact same things that he'd been saying? Because a Trump supporter could turn around while Trump's in power and say those exact same things, and then you will be wanting to rebut them. So what about the GDP? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, God, I'll go on a rant, and I will make this stream last 3 hours. So let's break this down, because I don't want you to be here all night. So, because that's how I am. So let's break this down.
David, why are you acting like the economy is so booming and good?
That's a great question. Why is he acting like the economy is so booming and good? Because guess what? The people who are rich, that's what they act like. And the rest of us are like, oh, no. All right, let's go.
Because I look at the data.
He didn't say that it wasn't.
Right.
Oh, my God.
The first thing they'll teach you in any statistics class, if you take a statistics class, the first thing they will teach you is that people can manipulate statistics for political ends, that you can cherry pick statistics and use them to make pretty much any argument you want, right? And statistics and data are important, right? It's important to have quantifiable hard facts to back up your argument.
Of course.
But what David Pakman's doing here is something that only liberals do, is pretending that he's objective, right? I'm not pushing my opinion into this at all. I am objectively looking at the data in an unbiased way. That doesn't exist. Every human is biased. You have to be so incredibly arrogant to believe that you are the one true person who can interpret the data in an unbiased fashion. But that's what David Pakman is saying here before he proceeds to interpret the data in an incredibly biased fashion towards Biden. And then at the end, he has the gall to say, you know, you shouldn't be manipulating data based on what side you're on. Like, that's exactly what you're doing, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, gosh, this is going to be difficult to get through. I can tell. Eddie,
we're going to be ranting on this one.
Oh, God. Yes, we are. Okay, let's continue.
This is not a show about my opinion. My opinion is
Yes, it is. Oh. See, I told you. Look, okay, JB, shut up. Just tell me to shut up. Eddie, just tell me to shut up.
I can. I agree. It's frustrating.
Is irrelevant. I'm looking at the data, and that's why I say the economy is good.
The economy is absolute trash.
Oh.
There are no jobs.
Oh, we actually have record low unemployment.
Okay, first of all, hang on, let me make myself bigger. First of all, just because we have record low unemployment doesn't mean that people are actually doing good. Because here's the thing. You can give me a Ritz cracker with a piece of cheese, a Ritz cracker with a piece of pepperoni, and a Ritz cracker with some cream cheese on it, and be like, "Hey, you got a variety. Oh, look how plentiful you have. You have a variety there." And yet, you only gave me 3 Ritz crackers with food on it. David? You'd be like, well, you got multiple Ritz crackers. That is multiple Ritz crackers. But is that really going to fill me up? No. And here's the crazy part. It's like, okay, just because there is a whole bunch of jobs that are being taken doesn't mean that one person doesn't have more than one. I could have 2-3 jobs. Guess what? If you have 100,000 people with 2 or 3 jobs, that's 300,000 jobs. But only 100,000 people work in those jobs. Eddie, please.
It's something that capitalists always do. They cite, it's another capitalistic metric, unemployment, which, by the way, doesn't include people who are underemployed, people who have given up searching for work because they don't have it. And, you know, just because unemployment's low, okay, if the people who are employed still can't afford to get by, that doesn't really mean much. And under capitalism, unemployment will never, ever, 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 ever hit zero. It'll be impossible because, as Karl Marx points out in the book Capital, capitalism depends on what's called what Marx calls the reserve army of labor. So when feudalism goes away and when capitalism comes in Europe, there becomes this group of people who want to sell their labor power on the market. They want to be wage laborers, but they can't find places to sell it. They're unemployed. And that gives the capitalists a pool of labor that they can pull from, say, if their workers go on strike. So the capitalist workers go on strike, they turn to the reserve army of labor, the army of the unemployed, and they say, well, come work for us while our workers are on strike. Come fill up the workplace for us. So that is necessary for capitalism's existence, that reserve army of labor. So, they can talk about how unemployment is slightly lower under Biden versus Trump, but unemployment will never cease to be a problem under capitalism.
Exactly. And so in layman's terms, for what Eddie just said, so eloquently, I may add, by the way, is that they need to have broke unemployed people so that when it comes to actually hiring people, then if you don't want to have starvation wages, then they're like, well, if you don't want this job, and if you want something higher, we don't have to take you. There's a whole bunch of other people that I can hire and take in anyway. And on top of that, this is why they need homelessness to exist. Because if homelessness exists, that means that you'll be too scared to actually fight for actual workers' rights. And so then it's like they use homeless people as a means to say, look at them at the example. If you don't work for starvation wages, you're going to end up just like them. By the way, homelessness is on the rise. How do I know? Let's take a look. So let me share this and I'll get back to Mr. Pakman. I got to be respectful here because, oh, jeez. I got to. But this is from News 13. Says homeless population increases in downtown Orlando. I live in Orlando, right? Says according to the Homeless Service Network, the homeless population increased 5% from last year across Central Florida. Marth Are, CEO of Orlando's Homeless Service Network, says unsheltered homeless is up 38% from last year. Those people did not change. The housing market changed. Now, it says for 75% of the people that experience homelessness, it was their first time. They have never been homeless before. Most homeless people are newly homeless. So by that metric alone, what David Pakman said was bullcrap. I'm trying not to cuss because YouTube. But that's the issue. And so saying, oh, well, the employment rate is actually low. It doesn't matter. For over 40% of people who are homeless have jobs. They have jobs, David. They have jobs. And so when people are homeless but still working, that means that the system is crap. I'm not going to say the system is broken because it's originally intended to be that way. There's not broken system. It's intended to be that way. So then it's like, well, maybe you should have 2 jobs instead of 1 so you won't be homeless. Then where's the line? Maybe you should have 3 jobs instead. Maybe you should have 4 jobs instead. Or maybe you should be a slave instead so you can actually have a home and food to eat. Where's the line, man? Where are we going? Before I continue, any thoughts on that, please?
No, I completely agree. My friend said once, like, as a joke, he said some people don't work hard enough for insulin. You know, like exactly like you're saying, like, where is the line? You know, how hard do you have to work before you can get insulin when you're born with diabetes? You know, and who decides where that line is? I think everybody who has diabetes should get insulin in our society. We can afford to give it to them. Why wouldn't we?
Eddie, I'm telling you, dude, I just came back from hanging out with comrades, and one of the last things we did was, and God bless one of the members of my chapter, Sabiha. She had some warm clothes and blankets that she had in the back of her car, and she was like, can we deliver these to some of the homeless? Because it's going to be extremely cold tonight, and I don't want them to be without. And so after hanging out and bashing capitalism for, you know, a nice conversation, we went to the area. By the way, there was a homeless camp on Terry Avenue here in Orlando. Gone. They got rid of it. And then there was this line of homeless people that we deliver it to. Clean us out. Right? In fact, one of the members, shout out to you, Cam, if you're watching, literally took his jacket off and gave it away too. That was a nice jacket. And so the thing is some of those people have never been homeless before, ever. And it's growing. I did a story a few weeks ago where boomers are increasing. There are more homeless elderly people than there have ever been in history. So what is David talking about? I don't know what he's talking about, but I see this all the time, and it's growing, and it's sad. So let's continue. Keep it together, JB.
Everything is so freaking expensive.
Inflation was 0 in October, 0.1 in November, and year over year inflation is down to 3.1%.
Interesting.
That's still so high. The cost of goods is only going up 3.1% while wages are stagnant. Quit complaining. That's still 3%. The cost of goods are being driven up by capitalists so that they can maintain their profits at a certain level while our wages are stagnant. So our wages are staying the same and inflation's going up, and Pakman's like, that's okay because inflation's going up slower now under Biden than it was under Trump. Bro, it doesn't matter. The problem's capitalism. The problem's not Biden or Trump. They're just symptoms.
Yeah. And my thing is, I did a story a few weeks ago how on RBN, how they were artificially inflating the price of chicken. And so guess what? We can't afford it. Look here. Food prices are rising at the highest rate in decades. Says even as U.S. inflation moderates for millions of Americans, every trip to the grocery store is a pain in the pocketbook. Supermarket prices have shot up in the fastest rate in decades, putting staples like eggs and bread out of reach for some. Over the past 2 years, egg prices have nearly doubled, leading some customers to extreme workarounds to try to smuggle eggs from Mexico. Smuggling eggs? Are you kidding me? And painting Easter potatoes instead of dying eggs to save on household funds. Meat, fish, chicken are all substantially pricier than they were 2 years ago, as well as cereal and bread, which cost nearly 25% more today than they did in 2021. Look at this. Look at this. What the cluck? Look at the eggs, man. Golly.
It was like,
And David's like, oh, inflation is only up this much. We're looking at the data, David. We're looking at the data.
right. And a lot of us don't even have to look at the data because we see this in the grocery store. I went to Aldi's the other day and it was $7 for a 12 pack of eggs or a carton of eggs. It's like, what the hell's going on here? But David Pakman probably shops at Whole Foods. He probably shops at Trader Joe's and these real nice, expensive places because he can afford it. And the price of food doesn't really affect him. So he's able to condescend towards working class people who don't have a nice little job doing a YouTube show where they just bash Trump every day and make good money to do it. So he's not feeling the price hike. So he's able to act condescending towards those who are. It's really sick.
Yeah. And the thing is like when it comes to people like us, we're dying out here, man. I think that's the point. We're dying out here. And there's people starving. I'm not even going to say kids because for some reason, like there's, over 10,000 kids that died in Gaza because of bombs, but people somehow don't care about kids anymore. So I'm just going to say people. So people here literally are starving. And yet it's like, well, everything's good. It's just like what Joe Scarborough was saying in the top of the show. People are happy. Everything's good. The hell? All right, let's continue. Because I can go on and on and on, and I'm trying not to. JB, just keep it together, bro.
Interest rates are through the roof.
Interest rates are down 2 points and coming down further.
Kids can't even buy a house.
Well, okay. Kids can't even buy a house. I don't know what age you're thinking of. That part may be true.
I can't afford to buy a home. Eddie? I don't know about you, but I know I can't.
The vast majority of people our age are renters. I mean, we have a nation of renters because no one our age can afford to buy a home. And, but we're all paying rent each month to landlords, and that contributes to the GDP that David Pakman puts on a pedestal. Says, oh, look, the GDP is doing well. Well, that includes the 25% of our paychecks we're paying every month for rent to a landlord who contributes no value to society.
25%? Dude, I'm over 50.
There you go.
And on top of it, I'll be 40 this year, David, and I can't afford a home. 40. Yeah, I know I look good. 40, right? So what about me? Oh, I just didn't work hard enough. Is that what it is? Is that why I can't afford a home? I just didn't work hard enough? You could literally work in a diner back then and be able to afford a home and have a family on a salary as a cook in a diner back then. Now? Are you kidding me right now?
And we're a society drowning in debt, all kinds of debt. You have student debt, you have housing debt, you have even 60% of the country at this point experiences medical debt at some point in their lives. So over half of our country is being indebted by the healthcare system. And again, the money we pay towards our debtors goes towards the GDP that Pakman puts on a pedestal and says the GDP equals a great economy. But 60% of the economy is in debt. And this goes to the absurdity of his data, of his statistics, which he says are unbiased, right? He says interest rates are lower, so the economy is doing well. We have 60% of our country is being put in debt by the healthcare system, the system that's supposed to make us healthy. The system that's supposed to make us well is trapping us in debt that we have to continue paying back with interest for the rest of our lives. So how can you look at that economy, a system, a society where the healthcare system is trapping people in debt and say that this is a good economy because interest rates are slightly lower under Biden than they were under Trump? I mean, it's absurd. You're completely missing the root of the issue, the root of the problem, which is that so many people are in debt in the first place, to say, oh, well, it's not so bad because interest rates are a little bit lower now than they were a month ago or whatever. It's just total cherry picking and manipulation of statistics to try and tell working people that their grievances aren't legitimate.
Yeah. Like, we're literally suffering right now. And yeah, so let me continue on.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing YouTube, man?
I'd probably be working in finance, to be honest.
Oh, good for you. Good for you, David. Not everybody can get into that field. Not everybody has the brain for finance. Not everybody has the bandwidth for finance. I could not be able to do finance. So what would I be doing? David?
To be honest, I was all set to go into finance, and then they pulled me into podcasting.
Who pulled you?
The CIA.
JB. Shut up, JB. Shut up.
Everything right, and they indicted me.
No, I would almost certainly be working in finance. Yeah.
I mean, you have to sit there and talk crap about Trump every single day to put food on your table, man.
I don't have to. I choose to, sir. And that's.
I thought they pulled you in. By the way, just to let everybody know, I don't give a crap about Trump. By the way, Trump is just as horrible as Joe Biden. So if you guys come here and thinking that I have some love for anybody on the right like Trump, you are utterly mistaken, because Trump is just as fascistic as Joe Biden. The only difference is that Biden doesn't know where the hell he is. At least Trump knows where he is. That's all I got to say. Two old racists. Jeez Louise. Anywho, let's continue.
And that's a big difference.
If you didn't have that, you'd be totally screwed, man.
Right.
But I'm telling you this right here. There is no jobs. Nobody is spending money.
Actually, GDP has been up dramatically.
The economy.
Now, that GDP has been up dramatically. We do not measure our bank accounts by the success of corporations, because that does not translate to us, because we have an economy where all the wealth goes to the top. Here's one thing I want to give an analogy. Let's say me and Eddie live in a mansion, right? You and I, we live in a mansion. And when we go to the mansion, we have to go through the basement every day. And we live in the basement of that mansion. In that mansion, in that basement, we only have about a foot by foot square that we can operate in that basement, because it's so full of people. And they throw crumbs into the basement, few spritz of water, and say, you guys survive here on your own, and you guys have to work down here in the basement of the mansion. Somebody can come and say, but you live in a mansion. And hey, look, the household just got $100,000 increase in their household take-home pay. But how is that translating to us who's living in the basement in squalor? How does that translate to us? The United States is a mansion where the majority of the people that are living here are stuck in the basement, and we're not allowed to sprawl and go throughout the rest of the house. That's how it is. And yet you're telling me because the people who are on the top floor in the suites made more, that somehow we should be happy. No, David. We need to take over the mansion, bust down the door, and live it up and give everybody the rest of the house. But you don't feel that's good, right?
That analogy explains it better than I could with any kind of theory talk. I mean, that's perfect. It's exactly what it is. It's a mansion where the vast majority of people are living in the basement, and David Pakman's telling them, shut up and quit complaining. You live in a mansion. That's exactly what it is.
So why is it bad for me to complain about living in squalor in a basement when that's our reality? See, please stop doing the liberal thing where if I'm on fire and then you go, well, the Republicans will just say, sucks to be you, and keep on walking. But because I'm on fire, you take a spray bottle and spritz me with alcohol, thinking it's water and thinking, hey, see, I helped you a little bit. That's not helping, bro. That's what you're doing. And now, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining, David. Because my wallet actually tells me more truth than you could ever do. My wallet tells me, my bank account tells me that no matter who's in office, my life is still shit.
And
that's what me and millions of others. It is not just black people. It's poor white people. It's even undocumented immigrants that are coming into this country because of the foreign policy of our country that are dragging them in here. Not dragging them, but pushing them to come here so that they could be the new cheap labor. And then they pit them against us, right? This is what they're doing. Yet, we got to stop complaining. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with everything you're saying. I hope people understand, too, that's what you're saying is exactly what his interest rate argument is, right? He's looking at the vast majority of Americans who are drowning in debt, and he's saying, well, your interest rates are slightly lower under Biden than they are under Trump, so stop complaining. I mean, it is absurdity and missing the core of what's wrong with our system, the fact that the people at the top of our system benefit from trapping the people at the bottom of our system in debt. And then the money that the people at the bottom of our system are constantly paying towards the big banks in debt goes towards the GDP. And people like Pakman then point at the GDP and say, oh, look, the economy is doing great. I mean, it's such a disgusting cherry picking of data and distortion of the facts in order to push an argument. And then he has the gall to say, you know, people shouldn't be unbiased and cherry pick facts. Like, bro, what do you think you're doing? You have to be so arrogant to not realize that you're the one distorting facts here.
But dude, it's inhumane, bro. Like, it's inhumane to me. Like, and the thing is like, even though this guy is a Trump supporter, why is he a Trump supporter, bro?
Exactly. Why? Exactly. They never ask that question. Why do people fall for the populist right?
Exactly.
The liberals never ask that.
It's like, yeah, because he's searching for something to overthrow the system. And yes, was he duped by a con man that can't even keep his hair halfway on his head? Yeah, he was duped. A lot of people were duped. Just like liberals were duped into voting for Joe Biden and staying within the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party duped a lot of us. Just like the Republicans duped a lot of other people. Yeah. But this is why we have to tell them the truth and go, no, they're both bad. We got to go completely the opposite direction. Because They're telling us to go into the furnace and say, well, it's really warm in there. You're going to really keep warm. When really, we're going to fry the bits. And we're like, no, go into the opposite direction. Man.
Is in the hole. I'm not talking about Trump or Biden. I'm not saying right or left, red or blue. I'm telling you the facts. The economy is in the dumps.
Yes.
I would love it if he was able to present a single statistic that suggests that.
JB just presented about 1,000, Mr. Pakman.
We don't have a
There's
perfect
about
economy.
1,000.
And again, we started at the
Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just saying we've given him a million statistics, and even that Joe Scarborough segment at the beginning about how Americans aren't that worried. You can find studies done by Gallup that say 77% of Americans are anxious about their financial situation, or one that says the majority of Americans are discouraged about their personal finances. So
yeah,
it's just the cherry picking of data, and then they pretend like it's objective.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
And a single statistic that suggests that. We don't have a perfect economy. And again, we started at the top of the show by pointing out, just because they're lying about oil production being down when it's actually up, doesn't mean we like using oil as a source of energy. They are lying about oil production being down, and I wish it were, and that we were getting off of oil and going over to green energy. In the same way, just because the economy is doing really well by all historical metrics, doesn't mean that we say, hey, I'm satisfied, we don't need to do any better. There are people without access to healthcare. 40% of the country can't meet an unexpected $1,000 expense without putting it on a credit card or borrowing from friends and family or otherwise going into debt. Wages have not kept up with inflation over the longer period of time. There's a whole list of problems, but we are doing way better than we were.
No, we're not. No, we are not, David.
If we were, then Trump wouldn't be polling so well. But of course, these guys don't understand that the appeal of Trump is that he lies and says that he's going to end the wars and bring the jobs back, whereas the Democrats are being condescending and saying, no, shut up, the economy's fine. Which, that's exactly why Trump is probably going to win again. And then these people like Pakman will act like they're shocked. Oh, America's so stupid, they voted for Trump. No, you were just super condescending towards working class Americans for the past 4 years, whereas Trump at least said he was going to do something for him. I don't believe him. I think he's a liar, but at least he offered them something other than condescension and arrogance.
Yeah, I mean, it's like having a partner that nags you and nags you and nags you, but then you go to the strip club and the stripper tells you they love you, even though they're not telling you the truth. You still rather go to the strip club because the stripper at least will lie to you. Like the hell?
That's such a perfect analogy.
Like, golly, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're willing to go to the stripper, and the stripper is going to say, well, yeah, I love you. Give me the money. That's what this situation is. And if you really want to actually, square with the people, you'll let them know, yeah, people are really suffering. This is why the system needs to change. And the thing is, it's like, yeah, those metrics are great for according to whom and according to what metrics. What about the happiness level of all the Americans that we see? What about that? Or what about our happiness level? How many of us are now getting married? David is a millennial, just like myself, right? How many of us are choosing to get married? How many of us can afford a home now? How many of us are having kids? There's a whole lot more IUDs. There's a whole lot more condoms being sold because guess what? We're like, we ain't bringing no kids into this world.
Can't do it. Can't afford it.
Part of it's because capitalism is one of the biggest cock blockers of them all. Just ask any red-blooded person. We ain't getting it in like we want to. Let's just be real. Because we can't afford to. But that's the thing, right? I love how Eddie goes, yeah.
You're right.
That's the problem with capitalism. All right, let me continue because I talk too much. Oh. I talk too much. I'm too long-winded. I know.
We are not the be-all end-all of a Northern European-style democracy and economy.
No, because a Northern European-style democracy also exploits people so that the people in their countries can actually have it good, but the global South ends up getting shafted.
Yeah. And they're being dismantled too. Like even places like Norway, where I admire some of the things they've done, like Norway to fund their Scandinavian social democracy, they nationalized their oil company. So all the oil in Norway is owned by the state, and then that gets invested in social welfare programs for the workers, which is a great program. But, you know, even a lot of those social welfare states are being dismantled by neoliberalism. Like the last 45 years in the U.S., we've seen deregulation and more unregulated capitalism, what Ronald Reagan called trickle down. But what some people don't realize is that's been a global phenomenon. That's also been happening in Europe. So a lot of these social safety nets have been dismantled to the point where even people in Europe aren't living that well anymore because, of course, the problem is capitalism.
David, let me ask you this question. Would France be doing as good now that places like Mali and Burkina Faso have kicked their asses out? Is France going to be able to do that well? What about as far as their nuclear power that they use to warm their homes? Now that they don't have access to that uranium anymore, how are they going to be able to keep themselves up? Are they going to be able to have that thriving social democracy like they did in years past, David? Now that the people of those countries are kicking out their neocolonial masters? So social democracy only works when you can continue to exploit people from afar.
Yes. So true.
So if you really want to have worker solidarity, you don't even want a social democracy, because the thing is that you need to still exploit in order to have these benefits. That's the problem with these European style democracies. I don't want, no offense to the present company, but I don't want anything European style, because look what it did to the world.
No kidding. I agree. Well, I'm Irish, so technically they got fucked by it too. But
you Claire Daly Irish too. Claire Daly's one of the homies. So
oh yeah.
Yeah. So let me finish this, and then I because my next story actually has something to do with this. But oh, hang on, JB, get it together, man. What the hell is wrong with you? A lot. Don't answer that question.
Economy. But we have made improvements, and we have to recognize that if you are measuring how well the economy is doing differently depending on who's president, then you're being biased.
That's what you just. You know what? David, what you just did, bro? That's what you just did.
It's
Eddie,
unreal.
I need you to do something. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to jump on a plane, come here, put me in the sleeper hold so that I won't have to, and make me go to sleep, because I can't deal with this anymore. Put me in a sleeper hold, bro. I know you know it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't know. And it's like, that's the level of arrogance that we're dealing with here, to where like he can cherry pick statistics for 2 straight minutes to make Biden look good, and then end his speech by saying, you know, nobody should cherry pick statistics to make one candidate look good. Like, are you in what world are you living in? It's unreal.
Do not put sprinkles on a pile of shit and tell me it's chocolate ice cream, bro. Stop it. It smells like it. It looks like it. Don't tell me to eat it, bro. Stop it. Look, I can't tell you how many times. Perfect example. As somebody that's disabled, my disability check is about equal to my rent. Once my disability check is paid, once my rent's paid, my disability check gone. How do I eat, David? How do I pay for my utilities, David? How do I pay for my health care, David? David, I literally have a GoFundMe on my Twitter page. I literally have to crowdfund just so that we can survive. And my mother lives with me. My mother's 72, David. And she has never owned her own home. What do you say to her? Oh, you just didn't work hard enough? Is that what you're going to say? See, I can use myself as an example because there's so many of us that are going through this. And so when people say, well, things are relatively good, for whom? You got it good. You're on Roku. You're on Free Speech TV. You have a huge YouTube channel. Yeah, you're good. But what about the rest of us? And I think that's the point. And the point is that we can't look at this from an individualistic point of view. Because once we start to do that, then we start to divorce ourselves from the rest of the community and the rest of society. Right? I think this is why. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. At the end of the day, it's such an individualistic way to look at it too. His perspective, and yeah, I don't know. It makes me emotional hearing stories like that because you know people who need medical care to survive, and they're just scraping by. And like I've heard so many stories like yours of people who crowdfund. One of the first ladies I met through the Bernie campaign told me she was sending her insulin in the mail to people who needed it, which is illegal. So she had to like sneak around law enforcement in order to help people get her insulin. I met a couple through the Bernie campaign whose mother got cancer, and then her job laid her off because she had cancer. And then they just watched her wither away and die because she got cut off from her health insurance because she had it through her employer. There are stories like this all over the fucking country. I hate to get emotional, but it makes me emotional. And then you have people like David Pakman who are making a nice income to shit on Trump every day and give, half-baked MSNBC Rachel Maddow-esque political analysis, and they don't give a shit about the millions of people who are suffering in this country who can't pay for their damn medical care. And I just can't wrap my head around it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like the second I heard that story about the couple whose mom died, I was like, okay, it's my mission in fucking life to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else anymore, to make sure that we can fix our system and give everybody in this society healthcare. But these people like David Pakman don't care. They don't give a shit. They're never gonna have that collective working class spirit that we have as socialists and communists.
Yeah. Let me share this with you guys too. This video is entitled, How Much Money Do Americans Need to Be Comfortable?
They need to earn $233,000 a year to be financially comfortable.
$233,000 per year. Eddie, do you have $233,000, man?
I fucking wish. Sorry, I don't mean to swear, but not even close.
Yep.
But in 2021, American workers on average made only $75,203 annually.
Americans are sort of looking at how much money they would like to have to be financially secure, and that ends up being basically 3 times what the average income is in this country. And to be essentially wealthy or really successful, it's magnitudes above that.
72% of Americans said they weren't financially secure given their current finances. And more than a quarter of Americans said they'll likely never be financially secure.
By the numbers, their debt is lower and their savings are higher coming out of the pandemic, but they're more anxious about what's going to happen next, if they have job stability, if they're going to be able to have secure retirement.
With well over half of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, many are failing to meet some of their modest financial goals.
There are actually millions of people struggling. It's not something that people want to talk about, but if you're in a place where your financial security feels super precarious, you're not alone. And it's not your fault.
So how did it become so difficult to be financially secure in America? And what can you do about it? Let's do some budgeting. Americans working full-time earned a median monthly income of about $4,400 during the second quarter of 2023.
I wish I made that much.
No,
I really
kidding.
do.
I don't know almost anyone who makes that much. I mean, the cost of living in the Midwest isn't what it is in like New York and LA, but I don't know almost anyone who makes that much.
Dude, we literally have, in order to afford a 2-bedroom here in Florida, you have to make $32 an hour.
Holy shit. Holy crap, dude.
Yeah. I'll show you the numbers in a minute, but let's continue.
The average worker takes home 75.2% of gross wages after taxes and benefits, shrinking the take-home pay to about $3,388. And that just isn't enough to cover the cost of living in America today.
The cost of healthcare, that has skyrocketed. The cost of attending college has skyrocketed. The cost of purchasing a home has skyrocketed. But nowhere has anyone said wage growth is up 15%, right?
Take a look at some of the most essential expenses for Americans. The median monthly rent in the US is $2,029 as of June 2023. That amount already accounts for over 46% of the Americans' median pre-tax income. But most US agencies classify spending more than 30% of one's gross monthly income on rent as being rent burdened. Meanwhile, the median mortgage payment for a 2,400 square foot house was $1,957 per month. However, a common rule of thumb advises spending 28% or less of your pre-tax income on mortgage payments. For the median gross monthly earnings, that translates to just $1,232.
As we talk to households and talk to consumers out in the real world, especially those, say, under 40, housing is the big issue. You know, rent, mortgage. It is the biggest concern that people aren't going to be able to make the next payment.
There's your
Inflation
GDP.
is really hurting individuals.
That's what helps the GDP go up, all the money we're paying in rent every month. It's a great sign of how the landlords are doing, but not the working people of this country.
Exactly.
Having stability in their housing. And I think sometimes we underestimate that if you have uncertainty in your housing, it causes uncertainty everywhere.
Housing is also the reason why cities have become more difficult to afford. Americans said it would require more than $1 million in net worth to be financially comfortable in places like San Francisco, New York, and Southern California.
This is why we've seen some migration or mobility around the country where some people say, I'm living in a high cost state like California or New York. We really want to sort of pack up and go to an area that's less expensive. And one of the ironies of that is those places that were cheaper before are now becoming more expensive.
Like Florida, where I live. Because everybody's moving here. Everybody and their mama. And what do? Because now we're being gentrified up the wazoo now here. It's crazy, man.
It is. My buddy's in Aspen, Colorado, which is a hot spot for rich people to move. And like, it's like $6 to $7 for a Snickers bar when I go visit him. It's insane. And the only way that he can live out there is by teaching, because if they didn't offer free apartments to the teachers, they wouldn't have any teachers, because you can't survive on a teacher's salary in Aspen. So he got his teaching degree and started teaching so that he could get free housing and actually afford to live out there. But it's insane, the cost of living in some of these areas.
God. Hey. Hungry? I'll wait. I won't grab a Snickers. Jeez. Man. So, due to the sake of time, I would like to I would like to finish this video, but due to the sake of time, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I'll put this video in the chat as well. But it just goes to show how people are really, truly suffering. And then you have a lot of people who go, it's not that, it's not as bad. And they're like, it's improving, when in reality, it's actually getting worse. It just, it doesn't square. right? So just checking, do you have enough time for the next story?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So before I get into that, if you guys have not, go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Also, just a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this type of work. You guys make this happen. So thank you so very much. And yes, my channel is still demonetized. Not sure what's going on, but I appreciate any type of assistance whatsoever from any and all of you guys for that. And just so you guys know, I also have my Patreon, so I can share that with you guys so that you guys know which tiers there are in my Patreon. So let me take care of this. All right. And yeah, so if you guys would like to, you guys can go to my Patreon and you guys can either become JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. So thank you so very much for your support. And if you guys, anybody who's a new patron, thank you so very much for that as well. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can do that. Now, just to say hello to everybody. And I will get into the next story with Eddie right now. Yeah, let's get into the next story. So let's go to this tweet here. This is actually from More Perfect Union. Actually, hang on. Make sure I put this. So your teen here. This is going to be an interesting subject as well. I think that we need to pay more attention to what our state laws are doing regarding child labor laws. It's going down here in Florida. So let me share this with you guys on More Perfect Union. And if you guys don't follow them, I suggest you do give them a follow. They put out great tweets regarding labor issues. It says a bill allowing children as young as 16 to work in construction, one of America's most dangerous industries for workers, has just passed a Florida Senate committee. This is the second bill Florida Republicans have pushed so far this year to erode centuries-old child labor laws. It says Florida's anti-immigrant law passed last year, SB 1718, has exacerbated a labor shortage in construction. SB 460, a bill written by the Builders Lobby, would replace those workers with kids.
Wow.
Yeah. During the hearings, GOP Senator Corey Simon wasn't able to answer who would cover the medical expense of an uninsured 16-year-old who was hurt on a job. Children working in construction sites are 6 times as likely to be injured on the job as kids working other jobs. Let's take this a look.
So I'm looking at as pertains to the medical treatment expenses if a child is injured on the job. So just looking at some questions that I just kind of want to ask based off the reading. If we have a 16 or 17-year-old uninsured child is injured on the job while working on one of these scaffoldings or a roof or substructure, who is responsible for paying the child's medical expenses if they and their families are uninsured?
Thank you for the question. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. I will consult with Bill but I do believe it's the responsibility of the employer, just like any other staffer that's working on the job.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Chair Simon. And I don't know if you, there's a New York Times article that I had the opportunity to take a look at that spoke about that found that contractors and subcontractors often refuse to pay the medical bills when someone is hurt on the job. Were you aware of that?
Senator Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, sir, I'm not.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Jones.
If that's the case, how will children injured on the job who are not insured and whose contractors refuse to pay their workers' comp or the medical bill have access to medical care if they need it?
Senator Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to work with you in making sure that those provisions are tight and making sure that those kids are taken care of just like every other employer on the job site.
Here's my problem. As anybody knows, and I know you know, Eddie, is that insurance does risk assessment. And by such, they know that it is more riskier for kids to be on construction sites than it is for adults. By that very notion, there will be children who are 16 and 17-year-olds that will have accidents, which means that the insurance companies will have to pay out more often for kids than they do with adults. So they're going to deny these kids insurance, period, because they don't want to have to pay that out. That being said, then these kids are going to be underinsured or uninsured. So by that very notion, because private insurance company, their goal is to make money. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. So they're not going to want to insure these kids. So how do you insure these kids when it comes to medical care if and when they have these accidents on the job?
That's exactly where my head went. I worked concrete for a summer, and there was an 18-year-old on the job who smoked himself in the head with a concrete form, and he was bleeding and had to go to the hospital. And that's just the stuff that's more likely to happen if you have 16-year-olds on a concrete site. It's dangerous work. It's hard work. You're going to have that. So like the idea that we can have 16-year-olds on these job sites that aren't covered at all is unreal, because, you know, you could get hurt and get slapped with a $40,000 medical bill as a 16-year-old that your employer isn't willing to pay for. And so, I mean, that's a really good line of attack here from this senator. But I mean, the fact that we have that we're pushing for 16-year-olds on construction sites in general is absurd. Like, I'm not against young people learning construction and learning, you know, these skills and building, but that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to get 16-year-olds in the workforce so they can maximize their profit, so they can pay them $11 an hour to do hard concrete work, and make a bunch of profit off it. And it shows, like, when I did the Jubilee debate recently, capitalism versus communism, the capitalists were trying to tell me that capitalism is what abolished child labor. It's like, no, class struggle is what abolished child labor. The capitalists loved child labor. They were making bank off it until the workers got together and said, no, you're not going to throw our kids in the factory anymore. But now, after 40 plus years of neoliberalism, and the ruling class taking back all the power that the organized working class had gained over the years, you see the return of child labor. It's just the natural progression. A more unregulated system of capitalism means more children in the workplace.
Yeah, it's just like when Majin Buu in Dragon Ball Z reverted back to his most evil form. Like, that's what capitalism does.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me continue and share this. It says, as several opponents pointed out, the bill might also violate the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. Through an amendment and height requirements eliminated some roofing work, the FLSA prohibits minors from working in roofing and any work performed on or about a roof. It says SB 460 is part of a coordinated effort in Florida and elsewhere to erode centuries-old labor laws that ensure kids have a fair shot at an education and aren't exploited at work. Says the sponsor of another bill, 16-year-olds aren't kids, but youth workers. So that's a bunch of BS. It says, okay, so that was the end. Sorry. But there was also this video that I also found. scene keeps shrinking. It's okay. About to go into this. So there was this video that I wanted to share as well.
Well, a bill weakening Florida.
Don't go ahead of me, man. All right. So let's share this.
At the state capitol, a bill weakening Florida's child labor laws is now making progress in the state legislature. It cleared its first committee hearing on Wednesday, but its future remains uncertain. For 16-year-old employees like Logan Schulenberger, House Bill 49 is an opportunity.
I'm trying to get in the workforce, you know, like some more experience.
This is a 16-year-old?
Looks like an adult.
Wait, what did they feed this kid? This is a 16. Wait, that's a grown ass man. That ain't no 16-year-old. He got a chin of a 29-year-old. Good God, man. Feed 544. I'm like, what? Are you sure that's not a 16-year-old?
Are they going to bring this kid on and just have him say, like, I want to work? And are they going to say, you know, look, it's good for kids to have them in construction jobs?
Aw, Eddie, you ruined the surprise.
I'm too good at sniffing out the propaganda at this point, I guess.
Yup. Let's watch it.
Experience you have, the more likely you are to get hired in the future, right?
He was among the supporters who spoke in favor of Florida's loosening of child labor protections on Wednesday.
It's up to the kid to know their limitations.
Specifically, this bill removes.
It's up to the kids to know their limitations.
Oh, my goodness.
That's dangerous. Wait, hold up. Wait. Oh, so wait. It's up to the kids to know their limitations.
Not the employer who tells the kid what to do. You know, the kid, the 16-year-old has to put their foot down if they're being pushed too hard, man. You know what? I know my limitations. No more work. This is where I draw the line. What? That poor kid is just being utilized.
It's up to the kids to know their limitations. Look, that is something that should be taken within reason. Because somebody can say, well, you know, a 14-year-old can date a 30-year-old. The kids should know their limitations. They know their limitations. Is that what you're good? Where's the line? You know? Oh, well, I should be able to work at a meatpacking plant even though I'm 13. I know my limitations. I should be able to work for DuPont Chemicals. I know my limitations. I'm 15. Eddie, boy, you need to come down here and put me in that sleeper hole, bro, because I'm telling you.
Specifically, this bill removes current curfew restrictions on 16 and 17-year-olds, letting them work before 6:30 a.m., after 11 p.m., more than 30 hours a week, plus on days before class.
Plus on days before class? Oh.
Here to go. It also removes mandated 30-minute breaks after 4 hours of continuous work and limits city and county governments from circumventing the standards.
This does align us with the federal law and 24 other states, mostly blue liberal states.
Rep. Linda Cheney listed the reasons she's pushing the policy, saying it'll help bolster Florida's workforce, keep hazardous work restrictions in place, and grant kids who want to work a chance to do so.
They want to work. This bill gets government out of their way to choose the path that is best for them.
There were plenty opposed to the idea, teens included.
We do not want minors who go into high school working 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. How are they going to function at school?
Democrats tried in vain to water down the proposed changes, but lacked the votes to make it happen.
No.
The amendment fails.
In debate, those members warned approval would hurt kids more than help.
We just recently passed a law having the school day starting later because teenagers need more sleep. I don't see how this bill helps that.
I really do encourage us to let kids be kids, which is a phrase that my colleagues have loved to use these past several years. And I don't understand why now they're a youth worker. They're not a kid anymore.
HB
Right.
49 still has a long way
That's
to go.
such a good point too, because Republicans have been saying let kids be kids. You know, when it comes to social issues, but when it comes to throwing kids in the workplace, no, kids are wage laborers now. And I mean, this is just class struggle. If you read the what's the name? I can't think of the chapter in Marx's Capital. It might be the chapter on class struggle. He just goes through in England how there are all these debates in the courts, and the working class is, you know, fighting to get kids out of the workplace and get lower hours and get higher pay. And the ruling class is fighting in the courts to get kids in the workplace and get lower pay. And this is just that in modern day. It's a class struggle in the battleground of the courts, of the legal system, and the ruling class, the capitalist class, is winning over the working class in Florida right now.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's continue, man.
Before it even gets close to the governor's desk, but momentum before session suggests it'll continue to move when lawmakers gavel in next month. Now, here's something to keep in mind. This policy does not have a Senate companion bill just yet, and the Senate President, Kathleen Passidomo, a fellow Republican, told us recently she's unsure what to make of the idea. She said she'd probably be more supportive if the bill didn't go quite as far. That's the latest out here at the state.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So that's what's happening here in Florida. They're literally trying to get rid of child labor laws so that they could have more teenagers work. And I actually reported on the law that was passed by Ron DeSantis, making it so that undocumented workers would be essentially deported if they were found working, especially in construction and things like that, because that's what a lot of them were doing. And so when that happened, then next thing you know, construction projects stopped here in Florida. They were like, yeah, we're not working. We're not doing this because we're not going to risk being deported. And now they don't want to pay a competitive living wage. So now they're like, okay, let's get the kids to do it. Instead of actually paying a competitive living wage and getting adults like you and me so that we can actually work in these industries, no, we still don't want to pay those wages. So we're just going to get the kids to do it for us instead.
Exactly. That's all it is.
See, this is why, number one, worker solidarity is so important. Number two, we got to advocate for workers, including kids, because forcing them to work in these conditions is also anti-worker, because a lot of them are not conditioned or ready for this type of work. Now, I am all for them doing things that are more age appropriate type of work. Like if you want to, you know, like a 16, 17-year-old working as a barista, okay, cool, right? As long as you also pay them a living wage, and then you also allow them time to be able to have enough rest, and so it doesn't interfere with education, because that's also important. Education is also very important for the proletariat. So they want to interfere with that, and then they want kids to work starvation wages. No, absolutely not. So I think that's important. I think, you know, part of that is also making sure that, yes, if you think let kids be kids, all right, in this case, let kids be kids. Let them get their education so that they can be a well-educated proletariat, so that when they do get in construction, once they're 18, 19, 20 years old, then they have the skills, because they didn't have to wake up at work from midnight to 6 a.m. before school like a slave.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I also say it's important that we built worker solidarity and joining organizations. Just like what Kwame Ture said, make sure to join organizations. I think that's important. Here in Orlando, I mean, of course, we have the RBN Orlando chapter. There's also Orlando Mutual Aid chapter. They're doing great work. There's also Real Orlando. They're doing great work. They also are feeding homeless people down here. There's also different organizations around the country. And I just want to use this time to encourage people. If you are in another city or another state, look up other organizations, especially ones that are anti-imperialist, that are doing work on the ground to help build up class solidarity within your area, because that is what's going to help us change this nation so that we won't have to worry about child labor laws being pulled back. Eddie?
Absolutely. I agree. Join an organization, get involved on the ground, educate people. Because worker solidarity is how we fight back. That's the message of that chapter in Marx's Capital I brought up earlier about class struggle, is that the only way to fight back against stuff like this is to get organized. But once we do get organized, we have the power, because they rely on our labor and we rely on them for nothing. So
basically. So, I mean, what's going on that's new with you guys at Midwestern Marks, so that we can whet the people's appetite so that they can tune in to you guys even more?
Yeah, check us out on Midwestern Marks on YouTube and TikTok and Twitter. We've got a book of poetry about Palestine coming out from Professor Danny Shaw. He's pretty awesome. I think that should be unique and cool. And then Noah's book about reproletarianization should be following that. So got a lot of cool stuff going on. Patreon.com/Midwestern Marks is the best place to support us financially. And yeah, appreciate you having me on. I love doing the show.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I'm so glad you were able to come on to break all this down, because I think it's deeply important. So thank you so very much for joining. And I think it's good to have your analysis on this, because a lot of times people will listen and say, well, I guess he's correct because, he's a guy in front of a camera saying this stuff. And it's like, well, no, you're not crazy. Yeah, you're poor because of this system and the way it's operated. This is why the system needs to change. And you can't do it within you cannot overthrow oppression with the master's tools, basically. So yeah. So thank you. So that was great. So thank you so very much for joining. And I will see you on the interwebs. And oh, by the way, I just wanted to say this because I think this is important. What you did on Jubilee was great. And I just want to say thank you for that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The capitalists were just making me frustrated, because I'm just like, it's like, guys, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. It's just, it has outlived its usefulness. It was fine when feudalism ended and it ushered us into a new age. But now we're at an age where humanity looks at each other and we're like, no, everybody should have housing. Everybody should have healthcare. Everybody should have good food. Everybody should have clean water. Everybody should have a livable planet. And nobody should be going abroad to kill other people for resources. We can all come together. It's just a natural progression.
Absolutely.
All right.
Time to move on.
Yep.
Capitalism.
Yep. Thanks a lot, bro. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks for having me, JB. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So, man, these guys are brilliant, man. If you guys don't follow people at Midwestern Marks, what are you doing with your life? So I'm going to say thanks for everybody. Please make sure to like share, and subscribe if you guys have not already. So I'm going to go to the chat and let's have a conversation. So Mastermind Air says, JB goes where fashion sits, where he's putting out the Ritz. I saw that. I was like, yeah, that's funny. Now it makes me want to sing. Now you got that song stuck in my head, Mastermind Hour. What the hell? Anywho, let's just go ahead and say hello to all the peeps that are watching and get you guys' thoughts about some of the things that were said. I know y'all got some things to say, especially about what David Pakman said. And I hope I at least did justice in trying to debunk some of the stuff that David was saying. And it's just, it's sad because the things that he was saying is just completely devoid about from what a lot of us are going through. Miguel H coming in saying, peace, good to see you. Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, everyone, hi, JB, Miguel, and Eddie. Cowboy Kitty coming in saying hello. Sean Miller coming in, giving me the hello cat face and love. Cool Blue coming in saying, good evening, everyone. All right, we have Christopher coming in saying, excited. I know, it's Eddie. Andrew coming in saying he was never leftist, but he started getting worse after the first YouTube apocalypse in 2018. I was watching him right after that, so I wasn't in that zone. Like, anywho, that's when I started watching him, but then I quickly moved on. So Rondo says the Scarboroughs are effing delusional. Yeah. Jacqueline says, so who did they ask on this survey? The members of the top 10%? That's what I'm asking. Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll survey people who have a landline. Who do you know still has a landline? People who are established, people who already own their homes, people who are already retired, people who have money. So of course they're going to say everything's good. They ain't polled me. LOL Eliminate says, Pac-Man, oh, here we go. Exactly. Right? Blue Marvel himself, John Kemper, a.k.a. Adam Bashir, says, peace, love, and solidarity. Good to see you in here as well. I love it. Emoji says, hi. All right. Mastermind Hour, of course, we already established is in the chat. Says, hello, everybody's. Wadi coming in saying, hello, everyone. All right. Who is this? Corvid Ravenscraft says, never mess with a person that has ears like or someone wearing black Air Force Ones. Look, if I ever get into trouble, I'm calling Eddie. I'm calling Eddie and Nick from RBN. I'm calling them. Oh, and I'm calling Rome too. If I'm ever in trouble, that's what I'm calling. I'm calling the Avengers. Because that is where it's at. Midwestern Mark says, is Pac-Man really the grandson of Nazi? Wait, somebody said, hang on. Rondo said, I mean, David Pac-Man is the grandson of Nazis? That's allegedly. So his right-wing sensibilities should be expected. I don't know about all that. That take was trash though, but I don't know about all that. But let me continue. Joe Schwartz, good to see you, says this is going to be a good one. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. James Starks says, wishing you a good revolutionary health and same to your quest. Oh, thank you. Workers of the world must unite. Absolutely. Black Panther alum 1947, all power to the people. Thank you so very much. Power to all the people, especially workers of the world unite. Guru Gee says the stock market is doing good. So F all you whiny serfs, says the elite. Absolutely. You know, and that's the thing. A lot of times people are like, oh, well, the stock market is doing good. GDP is doing good. So why are you complaining? And it's like, how many of us actually have stock? And even if we do have stock, how many of us actually have access to it because some of us who have 401ks, we get penalized for it by trying to take it out anyway. And that's for us for retirement. And look, here's the crazy part. I have a savings account with no money in it. Is that because, I just don't know how to spend my money? No! Over 50% of my household income, and I'm half of that household income, goes towards my rent. So guess what? I ain't got no savings. What about me? How many of you guys have savings? Actually, anything substantial in savings? You don't have it. I don't have it. I know I don't have it. EMK says 67% of statistics are pulled from my high. Oh my goodness. And I usually don't like to go after people who are in this space, but I felt this was an opportunity to tell people, no, David's wrong, because most of us are suffering. That's the issue. And it pans out statistically that we are all suffering. Joe Schwartz says Joe Biden kicked people off unemployment. That is also true. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about. There's a ton of people that are still unemployed that still haven't been able to get employed. And how we talked about the quiet hiring, I know Savvy Savs talked about it. Quiet hiring. What is quiet hiring? Quiet hiring is when you're now down to a skeleton crew in your workforce, and instead of actually hiring people, the bosses realize that you can still get away with the production with a skeleton crew. So they don't hire anybody, but they'll make you think that they are still hiring people. They'll even put out, for that they're hiring. They'll put it out on LinkedIn and all these other sites that they're accepting applications. But then they'll do interviews, right? But they will never hire anybody. And they'll say, well, we just haven't found the right person yet. And they'll keep that up. But they'll keep you as a skeleton crew working and making starvation wages and working your behind off without actually adding people who actually need to be part of that workforce so that they can retain that money. Because guess what? They need to keep that money so that they can give it to their shareholders to keep it at the top. So while you're struggling, they'll make you think, they will manipulate you to make you think that, well, yeah, we're looking for people to hire. It's just we haven't found the right person. When in reality, they don't want to find them because they don't want to hire them. That's what's called quiet hiring. Ilhanar says the quality of life has gone down despite the jobs in America. Like George Carlin said, we live in a country of owners and the owned. You don't own anything anymore. When was the last time you bought a DVD? When was the last time you bought a CD of music? You don't actually own it because it can literally be wiped from your phone. You don't own anything. Alexis Anderson says David Pakman was talking about anything is like nails on a chalkboard to me. Sean Miller says unemployment numbers are based off people currently getting unemployment payment. If you run out or get kicked off, number goes down, yet you're still unemployment. Exactly. So what about those people? Oh, well, they haven't got a job yet. Well, they're just not looking hard enough. Is that where we're at now? EMK says, I wonder what Pakman has to say about BlackRock and Vanguard, but I can't listening to the sounds of someone. Damn, EMK. Damn, EMK. You guys are ruthless, man. Gee Louise, man. Woo. Man, you guys. All right, let me go to the bottom of the chat so that Sean Brock says having kids on a heavy industrial construction site is so dangerous. Yeah, that's true. Hey, the Willie Bragg Show. Hey, good to see you. Says Jaybefaunt, we have skeleton crew at work and they're pretending like they're trying to hire folks. Exactly. They don't want to hire more people because they want to save that money. And the thing is, it's not like they are hurting for cash, because a lot of these corporations, they have record profit years. They just don't want to hire people because they want you to slave more. That's what it is. Jeffrey Kramer, good to see you, Jeff. He says, no savings. Checking, I keep telling myself I'm going to stock away for some savings. Yeah, a lot of us don't have savings, man. Like, I keep asking myself, like, what's the point of even having a savings account if I can't even put anything in it? I can't. Because once it goes into my savings account, guess what I have to do? I have to go into my phone and transfer from my savings to my checking, just so that, or I had to pull from my savings because, the electric got to be paid and the electric bill is higher than it was the previous month, or my rent just went up. So therefore, that money in savings, poof, gone. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it is. And a lot of times people don't realize, like, your light bill got to get paid. They increased my internet bill. I can't do this show without internet. But they increased that. Sorry, Normal says, so you are extremely cost burdened with rent. Yes, I am. Deeply, yes. So cost burden that I have to have crowdfunding. Casey, good to see you. My savings account has $20 in it. How much does my savings account have? I think I got I don't think I have anything in my savings. I think once in a while it gets transferred and then it'll be like $4 here, $2 there. I really honestly just do not have money in my savings. Like my account is dog crap right now. Like, in my checking, I got $10.53. In my savings, I have $0. Right? I would show you guys, but it has the last 4 digits of my account number, and I'm not about to show that. But yeah, $10.53 and $0 in my savings. So when people look at me and go, "Oh well, JB, you're on YouTube. Don't you have money?" No. You see the size of my subscribers? Subscribe. You see the size of that? I ain't got nothing. I'm broke as crap, man. Look, I don't even have a car. I don't have transportation. People. So, yeah, I'm with y'all. But anyways, so yeah, I wanted to talk about these things because I think it's important for people like David to realize that his opinion about how well we're doing is not reflective of the majority of us. Because if it was, then we all would be backing him up. But we can't. because our wallets says otherwise. David tells me one thing, my wallet's telling me something completely different. My wallet is hyena laughing in my face. My bank account is laughing like Krusty the Clown. Why? Because my money is funny. So when people like David tell me that, oh, well, GDP is up. David? David, we can't afford food. We can't afford housing. You literally have to make $32 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment here in Florida. Homelessness is on the rise. People are struggling. People can't even afford their student loan payments. Some of us have foregone college, chose to forego college because we didn't want to get into student debt. Because either or will still be shafted. David, this is going to be ASMR. And we're going to talk about what's going on as far as the class struggle. David, I want you to listen to the sound of my bank account. It's very hollow. Ooh. That's the way my bank account sounds. It's very, very hollow. David, can you spot me $20? Because I really don't have it. I would really appreciate it. I'll send you my Cash App link. That's the problem. The hood is growing. The hood is growing. So that's one thing that, and the thing is like, and I don't want to say this without giving a solution, but one of the solutions is to get to know your neighbors, try to build community, and join an organization. Like, for instance, like I said, here in Orlando, we have Real Orlando. They're a great group that's doing, they have People's Free Kitchen, which they're actually getting together and actually growing food in a garden, and they're using that same food to feed the unhoused. So get together with people like that. There's also groups that are, like, for instance, in Nick of RBN, he has, the KC tenants, where they're doing tenants unions and organizing to help people with housing, because our desperation is literally growing as we speak. And so as our desperation grows, we need to have communities so that they can help us to stay afloat until we can actually change the system for the better. So start looking in your city for different groups that are actually trying to help people on the ground, and they may be able to help you on the ground as well. And it also is helpful for you and your spirit to also help people on the ground as well, because number one, you'll find like-minded people and you'll build community. Number two, you can probably find resources to help you. Number three, you can also help use those resources to help others who are around you so that they don't continuously suffer. Because it's one thing for you to get help for yourself, but it also hurts your heart to see other people suffer. So you also are able to be privy to those resources to help others. So try to do that. So with that being said, there's going to be some announcements here. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is, if you guys have not already, I also did continuation of the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price on this channel. So if you guys go to the playlist, I just covered, I think it was chapter 6, part 2, I think it was, of Laziness Does Not Exist. So go ahead and give that a watch. That was a beautiful reading, and I absolutely loved it. It was actually talking about how a lot of times us dealing with family members and having to take a step back and not stress over when it comes to household duties and things like that, being able to say no and being able to relax our minds and bodies as well, because that's what capitalism wants us to do. They want us to run ourselves into the ground and be robotic. Also covered the second part of chapter 1 of The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks actually talks about some of the main motivators of why we men operate the way we do. Bell Hooks actually gets it. And so, look, I'm going to tell you right now, men, look, 75% of my watchers are men. What is one of the things that we gripe about is that love for us is typically conditional. That is actually part of capitalism because they want us to be robotic. And our worth is only linked to what we can produce. So therefore, love for us is only conditional. And then the only type of emotion that we are able to have that is acceptable for us to have is what? Anger. This is why women tend to fear us a lot, because the only acceptable emotion we can display is that. And it does not allow us to be nurturers. So guess what? That's what capitalism thrives on. And so because of our incessant need to feel loved, we have to produce, which means you're not a man if you're not producing. Well, guess what? That's what capitalism says. That's why I'm reading this book. So read that. So that's also in the playlist as well as I read and discuss that. Also, I will be reading sometime this week of Water in the Spirit, Ritual Magic and the Initiation of a Life of an African Shaman. We'll be getting into this because guess what? The indigenous and the global South, they got some wisdom. We're going to be reading from that as well. So I'll be getting into that. And I just got this today. I'm going to try to get into this. This is Gaza Writes Back, short stories from young writers in Gaza, Palestine. This is from Rafayat Al-Arir, who is the editor. The poet that was murdered in Gaza. So I'm going to be trying to get this and read this in honor of Rafayat. So yes. I'm going to be trying to get into that as well. So thank you so very much for everybody tuning in. If you guys have not already, I'm also trying to raise money for the Orlando chapter of RBN. We're trying to raise money for grocery gift cards and toiletries primarily. So if you guys would like to, you guys can donate at $ Orlando RBN on Cash App. So thank you so very much for that as well. So thank you. And if you guys would like to, you guys can send, mutual aid there, and I will shout you guys out on Twitter for that. If you wish to remain anonymous, just put in the notes anonymous, and then I'll make sure to keep your name anonymous as well for that. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was a special stream on a Saturday evening, and thank you for spending your Saturday evening with me. I love this community because you guys are brilliant people. You guys are compassionate people, and you guys offer perspectives that even sometimes I don't have. And so this is why I enjoy going into the chat and getting your thoughts as well. I think Roger asked me to something about in here. Oh, and Roger, if you are still watching on Rockman, that thing with your thing with Cash App, I think it was. Yeah, I think I just remembered that. If that's okay. because I know I forgot and I didn't see that until it was late. Hang on, let me do this because I know. Let me go here too. So if you guys are not aware, if you guys are not aware, there is a comrade named Roger Meadows who's always that's always, you know, offering some words of wisdom. He is going through a tough time right now. So if you guys would like to, I'm going to put his link to let me see if I can get in Venmo. He's going through it right now. So if you guys can give him some assistance and mutual aid, that would really help out. Let me see. So if you guys can help him out at all, he's been going through it lately, especially, you know, in these days. And he has, you know, helped me out a lot. And so if you guys have not, then you guys can give him some assistance in that as well. And I will also give his Cash App link as well, so that we can assist Roger out with that too, because he's always giving really great information and helping me out, especially, and giving it to the audience. So so let me put the Cash App link in as well. You know, if you have, you know, $2 or $3 to slide his way, you know, then go ahead and do that as well. You know, because Roger is always doing the damn thing and helping us out with knowledge. You know, so, you know, shout out and love to you, Roger, because, you know, you are one of the homies. You definitely one of the bros. Thank you so much to Laura for the tip on Ruffin. Thank you so much for JB for speaking the truth. Thank you so very much, Laura. Much appreciated so much. So I'm sorry, Roger, I forgot to get to this in the chat. You showed me this. Oh gosh. Jeez Louise. Hang on. Let me share this BS with y'all. See, this is why, yeah, please help Roger out. It says Florida Republican co-sponsor of child labor bill owns company with history of wage theft. See what I'm God. Please. Does he have PayPal? Roger, can you answer that question? Do you have a PayPal? And if you have the link, just put it in the Twitter DM. And then I will I'll put the link in the chat, but just let me know. But golly, see, this is why Roger is so helpful, because he'll be sending me stuff like this, and while I'm live. Oh, he doesn't have PayPal? Okay. Roger, you should get a PayPal too, because that will increase the amount of people that can, you know, slide your piece. Because that may that'll be helpful too. But yeah, so, you know, give some mutual aid to my homie. But let me go over this just a little bit, because I wasn't planning on this. Roger, you be sending me some information. Senator Keith Perry is a co-sponsor of the legislation that will loosen the hazardous work requirements in construction for children as young as 16. Of course. God, look at a demonic face. Anyway, it says Florida lawmaker who's co-sponsoring the legislation that will allow 16, 17-year-olds to work on residential construction projects is himself the owner of a roofing company that has been found guilty in the past of breaking federal wage and hour laws. Perry Roofing Contractors in Gainesville-based company founded and led by Florida Senator Keith Perry has been sued at least 6 times for wage theft. Oh my God, the Gainesville Sun reported in 2019 and was later cited by the federal government. According to court records dating back to 2006, Florida former employees who had sued and claimed to be paid for piecework, the Sun reported, and said that they weren't paid for overtime and were lawfully entitled under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the federal law that governs federal wage, hour, and child labor standards. 2 years later, in 2021, the U.S. State Department of Labor separately found Perry Roofing Contractors, led by CEO Keith Perry, guilty of violating overtime and record-keeping requirements under federal law. It's unclear that this investigation involves employees who have already sued, but federal enforcement data reviewed by the Orlando Weekly shows the investigation began in 2019. It says Perry's company agreed to pay $31,673 back pay to 30 workers following the conclusion of the federal investigation. According to the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division, construction is one of the most common industries in which violations of federal minimum wage, overtime, and child labor standards occur. It says, oh my God. Of course. This guy. Any wonder what? And I gotta go because if I keep this going, I'm gonna pop an aorta, and that's extreme because aorta is. Kurt for life. What in the world are you talking about? Breaking Donald Trump announces Don King as VP. You cannot be serious. You're not serious. No, not Don King. Nah. Anywho, I gotta get going. But please make sure to slide a little bit. Roger Meadows way, for mutual aid for a comrade. Because I missed this last stream. I want to make sure I get it this stream. Because Roger is the homie. Love you, Raj. And thanks for that link, Roger. Oh God, why'd you send it to me though? Like, I appreciate it, but at the same time, it's like, damn it. Oh, of course, these guys. Never trust a Cappy. All right. I gotta get going. Anywho, guys, love you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Look. Water your plants. Oh, God, water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them. Drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny. Watch something hilarious because joy is revolutionary. Or read something because reading is fundamental. Please go ahead and do that. Thank you so very much to Eddie Liger Smith from Midwestern Marks for joining me on this beautiful Saturday evening. Shout out to all of you. Sabiha and Cam, mwah, love you. It was a great day. And shout out to y'all from real Orlando because I got to see some of y'all today. You guys are a beautiful bunch of folks out there. And I cannot wait to go to that garden because I'm going to take a look at that garden and I'm going to be scoping out what type of fruits and veggies y'all got up over there. So thank you so very much. And yes. So, mwah, forehead kisses to every single one of you. And I will see y'all in the next one. Stay tuned, and I'll catch y'all this Tuesday. Bye-bye. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content